We have been coming. Welcome to the Friday Trust Engine Mastermind, where since 2016 we've been coming to you live every Friday. I'm Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon and co-founder of this Friday Mastermind. Dave is having some travel snafus, so I'm so excited anytime I get to be in charge. But it would not be a Friday if I did not have my co-pilot, none other than the founder of Plug and Play SM, Deborah Bird.
Hello, happy Friday, happy August, new month. We got the weekend coming up and it's my birthday month. And it's back to school.
Well,
So for those of you
happy
who have kids in the summertime and you're like so ready to get back on a normal schedule, we're counting down the days, guys.
birthday month. My wife reminded me this morning it's her birthday month too, so I realized I wasn't quite ready to start celebrating yet. So any hints you have, Deborah, just let me know.
Okay.
Just let me know. All right, chat. Let's see some people light up the chat. Where you guys all coming in from today? I am hiding out in Club 44, my attic in Venice Beach, California. And Deborah, of course, is in the suburb of Dallas, my favorite city for football. Just kidding.
I was like, what?
Dave is super disappointed today because today's conversation is going to be a really special one. You all know that Dave is working on his book, Know Your Code, and Dave has been. I've never seen Dave so fired up, right? I get the blessing of getting to talk to Dave all the time because of our friendship and all the things that we do together in life and business. And I can't get off of one conversation with him where he doesn't talk about the fact that he's so excited about what he's developing, the book he's writing, and today, we actually have a guest on who was really instrumental in Dave going down this journey. And so, as we kind of unpack today, I think you're going to see how Dave impacted, or how Marina impacted Dave. And then I think how hopefully you'll see that she can impact you as well. And so, I'm going to make sure I don't get this wrong. I want to introduce Marina Suholutsky, who is the founder of Purpose Built. She's got a corporate background. I'll let you, in fact, why don't you just give us that? Marina, welcome to our mastermind. And I'd love you just to give a little bit about who you are and kind of your background and where you started and how you got to where you're today and what you're doing now.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm in Denver. If anybody's been to Red Rocks, anybody know Red Rocks in the
Oh, I love
chat?
Red Rocks.
So
I saw
we're
Depeche Mode there back in the 80s.
I've never been. I've always wanted to
totally,
go.
it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. I'm 10 minutes from it. So that's where I'm coming from. We have like elk in our backyard. It's kind of, I'm a New York girl. I was raised in New York, so to move to Colorado and live 10 minutes from Red Rocks is pretty special. So that's where I'm coming from. A little bit just high level background. I like to say that I've kind of been in the consciousness game for a really long time. That was true when I was at IBM. I ran a pretty significant team of machine learning engineers. So we were doing chatbots before chatbots were popular, and LLMs before LLMs were a popular thing. I will leave the light criticism of IBM's decision making about where they invest off of this stream, but that is why I'm not at IBM anymore. But I've transitioned into consciousness work with humans, right? Which more and more and more and more is going to become very important as AGI builds. And so what I mean by consciousness work, consciousness is kind of this loose term, right? That's gaining a little popularity. But all I really mean by that is the ability for us to be aware of what's happening in our own conscious world, right? So we have a way of thinking, of being, of making decisions, of telling ourselves stories. Dave and I really get along because so many of the things that he naturally has accumulated over a lifetime of personal growth is very much what we're doing inside of Purpose Built, right? So we're asking questions, we're figuring out, hey, how am I orienting around my world and in my life? And from there, we're making hopefully better decisions ultimately. And we do that with founders, with CEOs, and with teams.
So that was a lot that you just unpacked. And one thing that sticks out to me is when you say the ability for us to be aware, like how do you teach or train and then develop the system to continuously kind of self-audit? What stories are we telling ourselves and how do I become more
Yeah.
aware?
Yeah. So there's kind of this magic thing that very few of us are taught how to do in our educational lives, and that is to pause. You know, we run a newsletter called The Pause, because the first thing that people who want to self-master need to do is to reflect. And so the simplest thing to start with is to take a breath, right? And to go, okay, what is here for me right now? What's happening? What story am I telling myself? It's one of my favorite questions. What story am I telling myself? Right? But in order to even ask that question, we have to pause. Happy Friday, everybody. Take a moment, right? And just be. And no one teaches us to do that. And we can talk dopamine hits and the internet and all those things all day, every day. And so the basic starting point is to just recognize that we can just be with ourselves and to develop some practices for that. And then we can start asking questions.
I do think that, we have such a group here of hard charging, high end, successful loan officers. And I feel like the idea of pausing is such a difficult thing for everyone. So how would you coach someone on when they should pause and what that should look like?
You have to understand the value of pausing or you won't pause, right? So, so the value of a pause, I mean, if you ever heard, slow is fast, fast is slow, smooth is fast, those kinds of things, like a Navy SEAL term. The idea is that when you actually give yourself space, you are A, more present, but B, you're not running on overdrive and in some kind of automatic response. So the value of pausing is essentially not being in fight, flight, or freeze, right? If we're in fight mode, which is, Todd, I think a little bit of what you're talking about, like charging, going, that can get exacerbated into, I have to find a way to not lose. And the second we get into not losing, we're actually in a survival response. When we were hunters and gatherers, we were running away from tigers, right? And being hunted. And so when we realize we're not being hunted anymore, we realize, okay, I can actually get out of a survival mechanism response and into my prefrontal cortex. When we're running, when we're in autopilot, we're actually not in our brain, in the part of our brain that gives us the ability to think logically and critically. We're just in autopilot. And so most people are going off of autopilot, right? And the value in the pause is to realize I'm actually giving myself the ability to think more critically, strategically, when I pause and come back to presence. And I want to make sure everybody knows what fight, flight, freeze is. I know that might not be in everybody's vernacular. So does everybody know what that means or no?
Well, let's go through it just in case.
Okay. So fight, freeze are, so I'll just back up. So when we experience a threat, right? A threat is anything from, I'm not going to make my numbers this month, or it's August 1st and, oh, I'm in the red again because I have to start all over, right? That's a threat in our internal reptilian psyche, right? And so the way we orient towards that threat is we either go into autopilot, go into fight. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna protect myself. I'm gonna be the one that survives. I'm gonna go into flight, which is I'm not gonna think about this for 2 weeks, and then I'm gonna be in catch-up mode, or I'm gonna freeze, which is just I feel overwhelmed. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, so I can't do anything. And we don't like to admit that to ourselves because we're high-performing, people in our industry. But we are humans, right? Deborah, right before the live started, you're like, so you're a human. I'm like, yes, we're all humans. That is basically the foundation of everything that we do here. And so when we recognize, where's my starting point, right? Then we can say, am I actually present? Am I in my ability to think logically and critically and strategically? Or am I in a survival response that's taking me out of the present moment, which means I can't even think to ask more strategic questions, let alone figure out what stories I'm telling myself. right? So that's the value of a pause, is recognizing, hey, am I actually at my best or not?
Do you think that this is something that you need an outside coach to first kind of interrupt your patterns to own and recognize, like, wait a minute, even though I'm a high achiever and I've experienced all this success, like maybe they've tried to practice the pause on themselves and they've asked themselves, like, what story am I telling myself? And they're just not able to maybe crack the code, so to speak, for them. But if they go and they receive help and, they meet with someone like you who helps discover, like, oh, wait, I do have blind spots. So now I'm more okay and maybe aware with seeing where my blind spots are in the future, like in giving myself these moments. But if you've never actually seen, like, oh, this is a story I'm telling myself, and someone just helped pull this out and recognize it, and now I can see the compound effect of how this is showing up in my professional world, my personal world. Do you think it's possible, like, if you don't have that interruption, like, I sometimes wonder if people are able to do it themselves the first time?
Yeah, totally. So a couple ways I like to answer this kind of question. The first is very simple. Like, I could cut my own hair, but like I wouldn't get the back well. Like, it would be a mess in the back. Like, I could try, right? I'm like, I think I could get maybe the bangs, right? It's the same thing. I can't write my own mortgage. It's not, and if you think about the way our brains work on reference points, okay? So what does that mean? That means that I will think about other things I've experienced to make sense of what I'm currently experiencing, okay? And so if I haven't experienced that moment of awareness that says, oh, I'm in autopilot, then my brain won't know how to reference it, right? Mm-hmm. That's why we do things like this. We listen to podcasts, we have mentors, we have coaches, right? There's no sort of set formula for how you get that first reference, but yeah, we learn, right? We need to learn these things in order to then be able to internalize them. So however you choose to learn, but yeah, there needs to be that first moment of not trying to cut your own hair.
I've never heard that reference before, but I wrote it down because I love it. For sure. I do think, you said fast charging, and I think that's how this industry is, but I do think, everyone's in fight mode, and some people are borderline on flight mode right now. And I love the idea that you have to value the pause before you can do it. And I'm always a big believer in reflecting. I feel like you learn so much from your past. Do you have like a reflection practice that you coach clients on, or some way that you would suggest for people to get started who aren't doing that?
Sure. So I'll take one step back before the reflection practice. And I know if Dave were on, he would totally agree with this. Some moment of gratitude. Gratitude gets you into the present moment. Okay. So what I do, and I know one of the best things I remember from, as I was prepping for this and thinking back to Dave and our first kind of couple of sessions, he was telling me about his morning walkabout, like his morning sunrise. He's called it a walkabout. I don't know if he still does because it was a few years ago, but the sunrise moments, right? For me, what I do is I'm seeing hearts. So we're on to something. I like to make my bed in the morning and
Oh, I think we lost the microphone.
We lost your mic there, Marina. Oh, now we hear you.
Oh, no.
Oh, there we go.
We hear you.
Can you hear me
We
now?
heard you say that you make your bed in the morning, and then we lost you.
I like to make my bed in the morning and just do my gratitude as I'm making my bed. You can do it with a journal and a cup of coffee, all of that, right? But what I like about sort of the movement component, you guys can still hear me, right? Okay. Is you're in experience with the world. And when you're, right, because autopilot is sort of an I'm in my own world kind of thing, right? I haven't taken a look around to see if the tiger is even still chasing me. I think it is, but I don't know because I haven't stopped to look. And so the ability to have gratitude or to just find a way to look around you, right, and break down that autopilot so you can pause, because when we're in reflection with the world and in relationship with the world, we can kind of say, oh, okay, I think I'm okay, actually. My kids are over there, like everything's okay, right? And that's the simplest, fastest way to take a moment of pause. And then there are other more kind of meditative, reflective practices, which we can talk about if you guys want, but that's the fastest path, honestly.
So I think this is really important, especially right now for our audience, where a lot of them experienced their best years in 2020, 2021. Interest rates were super low. We were all fat and happy. It was great times. And now the last, 3 years have been pretty tough. And I find when I'm talking to loan officers, they don't maybe recognize what story they could be telling themselves, or they're beating themselves up mentally because they're comparing their numbers, their income, their achievements, and they just haven't been able to get back to like even 75% of where they were. And so they feel a little lost. It's a little foggy. They're not super motivated. And not all of them, some are having their best years, ever, but there's a lot of kind of sales depression or a little bit of a sales funk, and they really need help, like maybe developing a code or developing this practice where, they can just ask themselves, what story am I choosing to believe about either myself or my worth based off my numbers? And is it true? So that would be my kind of homework assignment to those who are listening, is to ask yourself that question. Even maybe, what story are you telling yourself about the market? Because I see a lot of content that goes out towards consumers that says, oh, don't wait to buy if you're waiting for rates to come back down. But then when I talk to the loan officers, it's almost like they're waiting for rates to come down so that they can then do the activities that they know will help with their business. So I think this is really helpful just with the current mental state of the industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we dive into developing your code and the importance, and because I know, and I think Dave's going to try to join maybe halfway through this call, but he's been, like Todd said, I know y'all met in 2023 and he's been on this mission and he's so excited about knowing your code and owning your code. How did you help him discover this, and why do you think it's so important for people to discover?
Yeah, and I'll take the last bit of what you said, Deborah, and just kind of thread it through, because they're very related. So when we look to the outside world, like my numbers are up, my numbers are down. I feel good, I feel bad. It's really simple. We're very simple people. Like as humans, we're just very basic animal instincts.
I feel like
we
are so
very
difficult.
Simple people.
Oh.
This is where like I really appreciate the human experience and just get like a kick out of it. Maybe I'm a little masochistic, I don't know. But when we look to the outside to help us understand how we feel on the inside, we're setting ourselves up for a very tumultuous life experience, right? So if my numbers are up and I feel great, I'm going to have happiness, right? And if my numbers are down, I'm not going to feel so good, and I'm going to have, to the extent of a depression, right? Depending on where you fall on that spectrum. What we are talking about in terms of getting clear on your code is figuring out what's happening on the inside that you can anchor into that actually doesn't change. Your priorities in life might change, right? So the best example I can give is when we have kids, our priorities shift dramatically, right? But that doesn't mean the things that matter to us, like connection with the people we love, change. They just get applied to different areas, right? But the anchoring to understand what's true for me from the inside out is how we battle through those ups and downs, right? or how we find some stability through those ups and downs so that we're not looking to the outside world all the time. And so, well, I'll pause there. Does that give good context?
I love that.
Okay. So I can share a little bit about the process. Would that be a good kind of next piece?
Yes.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay. So credit where credit is due always. I have some really beautiful teachers in my life. One of them, his name is John DeMartini, Dr. John DeMartini. He's
Love him.
the industry. He's phenomenal. He's, I would say, and obviously he's my teacher, so I believe this, but he's the foremost leader on value systems and how do humans create value systems, I think, in this industry. So credit where credit is due. I would say 90% of what we're talking about is built on his foundation, okay? There are some questions that he asks that help you determine your value system. What we do with Purpose Built is we take that one step further, where we call them intrinsic drivers, because from the inside out, like I was just explaining, but intrinsic driver stands for ID, like identity, because the things that matter to us literally make up who we are. And when we know who we are, i.e. your code, right? I wish Dave, like I know he'd be like nodding at this moment. When you know who you are, then you can show up to what you need to do, right? Most people try and take what they're doing to help them validate who they are, right? And so some of the questions, how do you spend your time? How do you spend your money? Time and money are finite resources. They're not exponential until we, realize that time doesn't exist, but that's a different podcast. But time and money are finite resources. And so where we put our time and where we put our money matter to us. People always give me answers around how they spend their time that exclude work. Well, the way that I would like to spend my time is, that doesn't count, right? Because, and this is one of John's geniuses, and he says your life gives you clues to what's actually important to you, not what you think should be important to you in the future. So one of the things we say at Purpose Built all the time is real, not ideal. What's actually true in your life, let's find that. There's a reason that you spend so much time at work. I always say, you could be living in a van and hiking all the major 14ers, like you could be, but you're not, so why, right? There's something in that that's important to you. It could be providing for your family, creating security, stability. It could actually be your creative outlet. It could be where you have a sense of achievement or accomplishment, right? These are all things that actually drive us, even when the application of those things looks different over time, right? So how do we spend our time? How do we spend our money? Where have we actually made progress in our lives? Not what are our goals that just exist, but then we wake up and we forget them when we're in fight, flight, or freeze. What are the things that we have taken action on? Where have we made progress? That's an example of a question we ask. What inspires you is always a nice one, right? How do you fill your physical environment, right? Do you fill your environment with people that are supportive and aligned, right? Or not, right? These are the things that give us clues to the code, to the thing that ultimately drives you as a human.
Does that who you physically put in your environment, does that also apply to things like, who you follow online and what news you watch or don't watch, that kind of thing as well?
Yes, yes, and I can speak to it a little bit if you'd
I'd
like.
love it.
It's all
Absolutely.
yeah. So there's a lot of guilt going on around these days, a ton of it, for doom scrolling, tons of guilt, right? Now, again, dopamine addiction is a thing. Let's put that to the side just for a moment, because it is a very real thing. But a lot of times we are looking to content as kind of like a tap on the shoulder to remind us of the things that actually matter to us, right? So people will follow influencers, right? Even if they're influencers that show them a lifestyle that they want but don't have, that's a little nudge to, hey, that's what you're going for. Like, that's the thing, right? So I remember I had one person get on a session, and she was really embarrassed about like how much she spent on luxury. Okay. And what occurred to her, she's a high performing performance oncologist. What occurred to her is that was her piece, right? And she had guilt around that, and she would follow influencers, you know, like the whole thing, right? Follow people online, all of it. And she's like, why? And it's like, because this is the only place that I can find peace, right? And when you have that awareness, the pause, back to the pause, you can choose a different activity if you're not totally aligned with that activity. But if you don't have the awareness to say, hey, what is this giving me? I can give you so many examples. Politics, Todd, you mentioned politics, right? A lot of times politics provides community, provides a tribe, right? So if there's an ideology, a place where we don't feel fully seen in our personal worlds, oftentimes we might find it in another community. That could be politics, it could be sports, it could be all kinds of things, right? And so to understand what is this thing actually doing for me? What am I getting out of it, right? That's the whole exercise. That's the whole exercise for the environment question, all the other ones. Go like 2 layers underneath and understand what's actually being given to you, what it's serving in your life. Then you have the awareness around it and you can make better choices. But
I love that.
until then,
Oh, go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just saying, until then, you'll have guilt, right? Guilt and like kind of like, oh, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't be doing this, right? It always serves something. And yeah, we can make better choices at times, right? If we're in doom scrolling land, but there's something it's serving.
Well, so a couple things, thoughts to all of you here who are either with us live or watching this on the recording. Number one is we're grateful you're part of our tribe. I do think that's what I love about this group and the fact that we come together here throughout the week, and then also when you watch the recordings, because there is so much negativity out there. If you're one of those folks who hasn't turned off the news or is just getting too caught up in it, maybe you should consider that. It's one of those things. I'm super grateful for you, Deborah, for all the times we get to hang out together, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that we are creating an opportunity for you all to hang out with us in Dallas in September. You want to give a quick?
I was going to say, talk about hanging out. Like, we're going to hang out next month. So September 11th and 12th, it's a Thursday, Friday. Todd and I are hosting our next Exactly What to Say personal certification, which, Marina, just so kind of you're aware too, it's a 2-day immersive, like, you're there workshopping, role playing. There's no laptops up. I mean, it is truly to help professionals just level up their conversations. Sometimes it's conversations with themselves, it's conversations with their partners, within their teams that they're leading. And so it's just something that we believe, and part of our intrinsic values is just how do we continuously practice and improve our conversations? Because I don't know if you can ever master communication. And that's probably the single skill that we should all be constantly improving and reflecting on. And when we first went through the certification together, Todd and I had written down my self-talk, like the conversations with myself are the ones I need to make more pauses for, which I would say is still true today. I don't know how much I've improved, but for those of you interested in attending and hanging out with Todd and I live for the September 11th and 12th event, just go to EWTS for Exactly What to Say with Todd and Deb, and you can sign up and reserve your seat. But we do have limited seats, so make sure you get it fast, because we can't have more than 16 people per group, and that's by design.
Well, and if you use the code EB500 for early bird 500, you'll save $500. And I don't want to jinx it because I haven't convinced her quite of it yet, but I'm trying to get my wife to come out so we can go see the Cowboys play the Giants on that Sunday. But it's a lot of fun. We would love to have you all. We would love to have you all along. in that journey with us. So I'll throw it in the chat here in a second. We'll make sure that the team puts it into the YouTube for those of you watching on YouTube. It's kind of interesting. I went to your website and it looks like all your coaches talk about these intrinsic drivers, but then I also love it that you've got people on there talking about biohacking. You've got operating system, belief OS. So I really love that. So you want to pick? Can you unpack some of those other areas that your team coaches people on?
Sure. So I'll zoom out a little bit. I'm assuming in your industry you have sort of the concept of a customer journey, right? Sort of phases of the journey, like pre-qual, post-sale, et cetera, right? That kind of thing. So we basically do the same thing, but for human, like personal growth and human development. Okay, so you can't really create a linear process for it, but we've tried. So step one, anything we do, and I think we've made that clear so far, we start with what is driving you as a human. I always tell people, like, if I don't know what's driving you, I really think you'll be wasting your time and probably your money, right? So it has to come first, because what is important to me as a human gives me a clue into who I am, right? That becomes the next stage in the customer journey. So the other big thing that contributes to who I think I am is my belief system. Deborah, it's literally what you were just saying, right? And so we do a lot of work around what stories are you telling yourself and what beliefs do you have about yourself and about the world, okay? They're not the same. They do overlap at times. What happens, I won't get into the whole kit and caboodle, but I do want to spend a little time on beliefs because I think they would be a natural next step and also very helpful for you guys, for this audience specifically. So beliefs are stories that we make up about the world, conclusions we make up about the world based on our life experience. Remember, our brain works on reference points. So the stories that we tell ourselves are built on those reference points. We acquire those stories when we're babies. So when if I had my slides up, there's a picture of a slide we always show where the baby baby's starting to learn how to walk, puts its head on the floor and is like, oh, the floor is not sinking underneath me. Like, I can do a headstand. That is a belief we learn about the world, right? Oh, the ground will catch me. I say that figuratively, literally, etc., right? And so not all beliefs are bad, but we do accumulate them. And over time, we also accumulate conclusions that we've drawn about who we are, identity. So if mommy and daddy were having a fight, anytime up until about the age of 10, developmental psych says anywhere between 8 to 12 is kind of the end point of when we start to formulate these beliefs. So anything before, let's just say 12, becomes part of how we orient around the world. And so if we are witnessing a fight in the home, we haven't yet developed the ability to discern, to make sense of the fact that it's not about us as people, right? So if there's a fight, it must be because I did something wrong, is one belief. It must be because I'm bad. It must be because I'm not good enough, right? This is kind of a trauma-based example, but we develop beliefs, anything from the ground will catch me all the way to some more challenging things. And so the belief OS, Todd, that you were talking about is basically understanding what is the ecosystem I'm operating in. What are the stories I'm telling myself? And then how do I dig them out of the subconscious, which, by the way, sounds more surgical than it is. It's actually not that painful. But how do I sort of become aware of what they are? And then I can work with them. And then I can rewrite them. Because actually I can bring the adult version of myself into the room and recognize, oh, it's not true all the time. I'm not being chased by the tiger all the time. Because our own self-beliefs also create survival responses. A lot. If there's some unexplored place where no matter how smart and how logical you are, somewhere in your gut, you still feel like you're just not a little good enough, just enough, that'll hold you back. I'm not good enough from a founder, entrepreneur, team perspective. Unlocking I'm not good enough skyrockets, like literally skyrockets your growth, right? And there's a bunch of those beliefs. I'm alone. I have to do it myself is another huge one. I think everybody on this call has chosen an entrepreneurial path, right? And so doing it myself, even if there's a team and that's still in there, can create a lot of friction. So we spent a lot of time looking at some of these, what happens when you actually come back into community, come back into tribe, trust that people have your back, just like we trust that the ground will catch you, right? Same for people. So there's a lot of that type of work, because when we know what's important to us and we know the stories we're telling ourselves, we have a very good shot at giving ourselves a leg up, right? And then we can start to go, okay, so now what do I want to do with my most authentic self? One of Dave's drivers is radical authenticity, extreme authenticity. This is the path to get to that, right? Because when you get clear on, okay, this is actually me, this isn't what society thinks I should be doing, what family thinks I should be doing, I actually have a transformed sense of self, then I can figure out how to make an impact. And I don't have as much weight on my back, to do that.
Man, my clients need you. I help loan officers with developing personal brand, and how do you find out like what makes you different, and being vulnerable and courageous enough to show up online. And I still have so many that struggle with video, because it's like, they sometimes I'll hear things like, well, I don't like the way I sound, or I don't like the way I look. Some of it is just the fear of approval of who's currently following them, whether it's high school friends, family members, or coming across too salesy. And then a lot of times I have clients that will say, well, would people care? Like, why would people want to hear from me? I'm too old. I'm not some young blonde talking about mortgage that people would want to tune into. So it's such this block in their mind. And it's really more personal development, although they think sometimes they come to me just for helping them be on social, which AKA then means me just posting for them and them still not showing their face if they can get around it.
Yeah.
They really struggle with, how do I differentiate, especially in mortgage when we all kind of sell the same product? And then also, like, why me? And what is my brand? And then am I committed to, like, what happens if I evolve from here? And so it's such a roadblock for them. Any advice that you would give for that?
Yeah. So I'm doing my best not to jump up and down. I have like 47 thoughts, so I'm going to slow them down.
That's my brain every day.
Okay. So I'll slow it down. So one of the first things, actually one of the last things you said is like, what happens when I evolve, or if I evolve? You're going to evolve whether you choose to participate in it actively or not. We are, again, right? I know it sounds simplistic, but we are human beings. We are actually always changing and growing. And we can choose to participate in that, or we can choose to pretend it doesn't happen, which is a little bit more of the flight response, okay? That's a personal, purpose-built, you want to call it whatever, belief system, but it is a belief system that honestly helps people kind of realize, okay, change is happening, right? So let me just not let that get in the way of what I'm doing, because it's going to happen anyway. So that's one sort of a belief statement, I'll say. Imposter syndrome, you alluded to it in different ways, is another big one. One of my favorite, it won't get you there all the way, but one of my favorite quick hit questions to ask is, whose voice is telling me that? So when I'm asking myself, who's going to listen to me, or stories like stories about the world, like the market's too saturated, it's too hard, it's a money game, right? So if the mortgage rates if the percentages interest rates don't go down, what's the point? These are all beliefs about the world, right? Or who's going to listen to me? What do I have to say? Those are beliefs about ourselves. My favorite question is, whose voice is that in? Who's actually telling me that? Okay, is it the TV? Todd, back to your like strong recommendation to turn that stuff off, right? Is it culture? Is it the spin cycle that we can find ourselves in, et cetera? Is it a teacher that told me once that the world is not fair? Or maybe a parent who told us life isn't always fair, right? Those kinds of things, they get embedded the same way that we learn how to walk. And so understanding who influenced us is a very good first step to understanding what part of imposter syndrome you're actually playing with. Who's going to listen to me? One of the places we take that is, who didn't hear you? Where did you not feel seen, right? Maybe this is not all that new, but whose voice is that? Who's standing in for that? Because we tend to generalize. Oh, it's the world, it's the market, it's the industry, it's my peers, it's whatever. But when you can get specific, right? And that requires some quiet, it requires some courage to ask those kinds of questions. You can start to unpack, okay, do I still need to be listening to that voice? Or is there another voice I can be listening to? And ideally, it comes back to my own intrinsic, right, from the inside out voice.
Yeah, I've heard that our negative voice talks to us like 60,000 times or more a day. And I feel like that's where people really get stuck. It resonates with me because my youngest daughter has really severe OCD, and she just has this voice that she knows is irrational, but that is louder than her own internal voice. And so how do you suggest to the people who maybe haven't recognized or do recognize their negative voice that they turn that around to be positive? Is that the pause thing or something
Yeah,
different?
and so I'll share personally. So I grew up with OCD, Todd. So I know that, and no two OCDs are the same, which makes it really, really tricky. But generally, when we know better, but we don't necessarily know how to flip the script, there's usually something in the subconscious that's telling us the other side of the story, and we're choosing to believe it because we haven't accessed it. So the way to actually know whether there's something unconscious or sort of like still hidden inside of us is to ask our bodies and not our minds. So if we pause, sorry to be a broken record, but you kind of can't do much without that. And there's some part of you that just like pings or pulls, or maybe just all of a sudden you get a massive stomach ache, or your shoulders start to like, do whatever they're going to do. That's a clue, because one of the things we always say is the body tells the truth. Do you know who, I share this story a lot, but hopefully for this audience it's helpful. Do you know who Dan Harris is? Is that a name you guys know?
It's not.
He used to be a news anchor. I forget exactly where, but he was a news anchor and very successful, articulate, who had a panic attack on live air. Like full-blown panic attack on live air. He's runs a really successful podcast, wrote a book called 10% Happier, highly recommend. He had a panic attack on live air because his body was giving him signals that he logically was overriding, right? That's a very sort of extreme example, but it gets the point across that we do have bodies in the human form, that we are still walking, talking, breathing things. And our bodies give us clues. And sometimes they get really loud, right? But a lot of times they're much more subtle clues. And so learning, hey, when I have a stomach ache, I feel X. Or when I have a stomach ache, I'm telling myself this story, right? To learn to recognize that that's a line of questioning that's possible for us, right? A lot of times, for me, OCD was a safety trigger. I did not feel safe. For those of you who know a little bit about my story, right? I was born in Ukraine. I literally was born into a physical environment that we left for a lot of reasons, by no one's fault. It's just what it was. And in those formative years before 12, I internalized some conclusions about the world, that things were not safe, right? And that was in there for a very long time in a way that, you feel crazy, right? You shouldn't, but you do anyway. And that's any person who has lived this life has some version of that, right? I don't think anybody leaves childhood without some scrapes and bruises, honestly. And so we all have places where we all think we know better, but we somehow don't know how to actually bridge the gap. That's where we look to the body to give us clues, and we start to work with what's happening in our subconscious.
Wow. Like my brain is still processing that. Do you have children, Marina?
So I'll share something private. The answer is no. And you said, one of the other things you said was, I'm too old for this. You said it was one of the things you hear. So one of my personal, may I share something private or more personal? So one of the most recent beliefs that I worked on was, I'm too old to have kids. I'm 38. And, I do this stuff. This is like I really enjoy what I do. And so, to still find these places where the stories sneak up, right? And so the idea of, no, that's actually just a story that's coming to me from the television. And yes, one of my personal current goals is to have a kid by 40 with my partner. So,
I was like, are you throwing that out there?
But
Is that like an invite?
No, I'm not. It's just not a dating show. No, I'm happily in relationship, but I think it's helpful, and I've shared this like maybe one or two times, because it normalizes this whole thing around beliefs, right? So the answer is I want kids, and I'm putting it out into the universe in a very healthy way, hopefully. But it normalizes this place where we all have these little like crevices in our psyche and in our minds that they just show up, right? It's the trick over time is to not judge them, right? When we drop judgment, drop guilt, we can just speak confidently in the direction of what we want and take aligned action.
Well,
I think that's so hard for people to drop judgment on their own thoughts.
Especially the more like sometimes it's a blessing and a curse, because that knowledge can sometimes be the very thing you beat yourself up with when you know better,
Yes.
and you're like, or you could teach this for a living and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, I know what's getting in the way, but yet I'm still falling short. And so it's like this, cycle. But I was going to share that my mom was 38 when she ended up having my sister and I. We're identical twins, and we were delivery table surprise twins. So they thought it was one baby the entire time, one name, one room, one crib. My sister was born, and then my mom was like, "Oh, I'm having another set of contractions," and they're like, "Oh, that's normal. It's the afterbirth," and then out I came. So I've always said I love just the shock and awe and like breaking in interrupting patterns and perspectives and just redefining like what's possible, because I wasn't supposed to be there. But it also is what led me down my own personal identity journey, because when you're an identical twin,
Sure.
you raised where you're constantly compared, and like everyone either like they want you to look just alike, or they're like, oh, you're the one with the rounder face, or you're the one who has the bigger thighs, and you're like, thank you for that affirmation. And so when I first got into mortgage, I used to originate, I don't anymore, because I really love helping people kind of figure out what is their uniqueness, because I fell into the trap of like, oh, I have to be just like the nerd. Like she's the mortgage nerd. I'm an extension of the brand, but it wasn't true. And it felt so hollow that even though I was getting business and, everyone knew who I was because I was very on social, but it wasn't for the real me. And so it was such this hollow victory of like, but people aren't loving me for me. So until I did a lot of personal development and deep work and hired a coach, and let me tell you, I wrestled with it. I can be hard-headed, and there were things I was being told. I'm like, that's not me. Like, no, I'm this. And I just, it, like, he had to allow me to fight with him to really then uncover, like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
you're right. And once I kind of released that and started to be me, like the real, that's why we nicknamed me Deb X. I'd like to color outside the lines a little bit. Um, it was so freeing. Like it felt like, okay, I'm not having to wear this mask anymore and I can be liked for who I am. And still there's times misunderstood. And I had to get okay with like not everyone's gonna like me. That was really difficult because I'm a pleaser, at since birth, I've kind of always been that role in the family. And man, it was just such a gift to be able to break through that and finally just accept myself and be okay with not being everyone's cup of tea.
Hmm.
So who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe you'll have delivery table surprise twins and then you can help them sooner. Because I had some issues, let's just say.
wow. Yeah, I was gonna say one thing too, just to share. I think, your description of kind of your path or that journey, the personal journey. One of my favorite things to say, we write purpose statements with people. It's another place that Dave and I, have a lot to talk about. I hope I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I can say that with mostly clarity. One of my, I'll just share my personal purpose statement. My personal purpose statement is to show the world what happens when people find themselves.
Ooh.
Because the freedom that you just described, if I can put that word into the conversation, the freedom of finding who you are and showing up with authenticity, which is again one of Dave's drivers, right? Values is, I mean, you want to talk about an unlock? That's an unlock, right?
I was going to say orgasmic.
Imposter syndrome.
That's the feeling.
We're just getting to know each other. So yeah.
Todd's like, oh my gosh.
No, I'm like that every time we talk, Deb.
The emotional freedom is like, I know a lot of times we always talk about financial freedom. I'm like, but financial freedom means nothing without emotional freedom,
Yeah. Our business is a direct reflection of our internal world. That is, again, a belief, right? A worldview that I've experienced truth so many times, to be proven true enough times where I really believe it. Our businesses are just mirrors for what's going on in our internal world.
So real quick, Marina, before we hit the end and we have to make it last minute, Purpose Built is your company, obviously what you gave up your corporate career to dive 100% into. So what would you tell our audience of why they should visit your website and learn more about you, and then who's a good target to engage with you? Kind of give us a little bit of a pitch.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the pitch opportunity. So we work with people with an entrepreneurial mindset. That does not have to be an entrepreneur who has started their own business, but it is somebody who is looking for growth, right? If you go onto the website, the first thing you're going to see is your business grows as big as you do, right? So if you're in the business of growth, personally, professionally, it's important to be in the business of growth personally, right? So that's the core audience. We have, Todd, you mentioned a set of coaches that support different areas, right? So we've got a relationship focus. If you're having some challenges on the relationship side, we have a health focus. That's the biohacking comment that you made at the beginning. So we have different focus areas to help with different friction points. Basically, if you have a friction point that's limiting your growth in the business, that's what we do. And I say with as much love as possible that we're going to ask you some personal questions, because at the end of the day, you are a full human in this form and in this life, and that's where our focus is.
Well, that is awesome. I can't encourage you guys enough to make sure that you check out Marina's company and learn about it, because you're all part of this community, and we know that Dave is our fearless leader, and the fact that he's really rocked Dave's world by the work that he's done with her. And I think it's just an opportunity for all of us to kind of figure out how we go on this journey to figure out how we can be better equipped in the future. And I feel like, Deborah started off asking, do we need an external coach? The answer is yes, you do, right? Marina said you can't cut your own hair. And I've heard it say, you can't smell your own breath, which always grosses me out when I say it. And I think it's a great opportunity. I feel like, Marina, this is like a breath of fresh air for our community. I know, especially this
Mm.
time, we've had a really difficult last 2 years, and so really to have you on here and share with us for an hour, I think has been a huge gift to our audience. And speaking of Mr. Savage, look at that.
Let's
I know, I
go.
just made it in at the very end. I did get to hear a lot of this on Facebook. So for everyone who tuned into this, I think you guys got a little feel for just how special Marina is, her process, how much she cares about people. I love that mission statement. And I can tell you it firsthand, everybody, the experience I had, multiple sessions virtually, the questions that she asked me, the amount of reflection I had to put into answering the questions very authentically and deeply. And really emotionally, it was, I told Todd I was so bummed that I wasn't going to be able to be here live because one, I wanted another little therapy session with you, Marina, selfishly, but I
Anytime, Dave.
also, yeah, right. And then Deborah, I heard you talk about video and I heard you talk about a little bit about your discovery, but guys, anyone listen to this, my closing thought, and then I'll let you close it out, Todd, is what Marina said is that what's happening in business, it's a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So if you should be on social media and creating content and you're not doing it, like that's a belief system that, by the way, is not serving you. If you're supposed to be prospecting and winning by noon, but you're not doing it, like there's things deep inside you that are holding you back. So I really do recommend leaning into Marina. Make sure you're leaning into the new Facebook group I created called Know Your Code, because I am very passionate about helping people through people like Marina, through the community that we're building, just get super deep, like know your code. Because if you know your code, you live your code, one, you're going to kick ass in business. And two, you're going to really be happy and proud of yourself. And the more you like yourself, the more proud of yourself you are, the more the world will return that favor to you. So Todd, back to you. And Marina, it's so good to see you. I'm glad I got to jump in here at the end.
Well,
Me
no, that was
too.
awesome, Dave. Dave, I just see it in your face when you're talking about Marina and the impact that she's had on you. I want to make sure, Marina, before we close out and Deborah and I give our last thoughts, is there anything that you want to close with yourself?
Thanks. I'll say one thing I forgot to say in the pitch, and I hope this is okay. You guys can correct me if not. We have a course. So if you're not, like Deborah, kind of what you were saying a little bit, maybe I'm a little hard-headed, maybe I'm not sure, I need a little taste. That's what we have a course for, right? So if anybody wants to take a little taste, we do intrinsic drivers and we do beliefs. That's the entry point to everything. So I put that in our shared thread, and I think we made a code for you guys, so you get it like 50% off, something like that. So that's the lowest barrier to entry for anybody who's kind of curious. I strongly recommend that you parlay that into something with a human. But I did want to say that, so thanks for the opportunity. I think the thing that I would like to just leave with is, I know it can feel really overwhelming, and sometimes I talk a lot, but at the simplest, most baseline level, we're all just trying to be the best version of who we are, right? That's it. We just want to live our best lives. We just want to leave a mark. We just want to not have regrets at the end of this thing, to the best of our ability, right? That's all this work is. When you can connect to the bigger reason for why you want to do this, it doesn't feel that hard, And so I just want to leave people with that. It's worthwhile. It's worthwhile work. And thank you for having me. This is so fun. It's so nice to meet you both. Really.
I wanted to add, Dave and Todd both, I'm just so grateful that even Dave, you saying how you wanted like your next therapy session. I feel like there's a lot of men in our world who sometimes struggle with talking about their feelings, and sometimes they're great at pretending everything is okay and they kind of bottle it up. And so you just giving permission and leading with that vulnerability and admitting like, hey, I need another therapy session is so true. And it's such a great example and light for the other men who may be thinking, man, I've made it to this level. How could I admit that maybe I need help? And so thank you for that. And I can't wait to take the course. I may be one of those that need to take it a few times, Marina. If you haven't caught on, I'm one of those that may need to repeat, because I also think sometimes you see things you don't always see the first time. So I'm full work in progress. I make lots of mistakes. I don't hide them anymore. It used to be things that I would hide, and I've just learned that they're actually connection points for others who are weirdos like me, who like to ask the weird questions and go deep with people. So I can't wait to do the course.
Well, I love it. So we'll make sure that you all have access to that code. We'll make sure that we get it out to the community. Best way to stay connected to the community, if you're not already following Dave, just go to savageinsights.com. And there you can see all things Dave, link to the Facebook group he mentioned, join his text club where he's going to definitely keep you up to date on what he's doing in this world. You can certainly, hopefully we'll see you all in Dallas to join Deborah and I for our Exactly What to Say. And I would just encourage you to really think through, right? I love what Marina just said, should be the best version of who you are. And this conversation is one that's overdue in the community. We definitely needed to take a pause, as Marina says. So I would just encourage you to really take a pause, write down your takeaways from today, and then just really figure out what is it that you need to do to charge forward and not be in fight or flight as we go in this industry. And I'm gonna, even though Dave said I could close it out, Dave, you're still here. I want you to say whatever else you need to say, because I really enjoyed today. It's been a really great journey. Thanks, Marina. And Dave, it's always good to have you with us, even if it's just for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, I guess the closing thought, I love the statement. I think Marina said it is like, we're always evolving and we're always growing. And now in an age of AI, the world around us is growing even faster. And so emotional IQ and self-optimization truly are the most powerful way that we can shape our futures, both financially and personally. So I'm so glad that you did this, Marina. I'm looking forward to, I think I still need to figure out a way that you and I are on Zoom together for this community. So I actually have an idea on that. So more content to come from Marina, but guys, follow her, engage with her. Highly recommend her session. I did that plus, some personal coaching. So I do think, as she said, going through a system and a process that's so well thought out is truly a great personal growth opportunity. And then pouring in and having her as a coach, I mean, she's just someone that has added a lot of value to my life. So hope you guys have a great weekend. This is a wrap. Take care, everybody. And thanks. This is
All
a
right.
wrap.
See you all.
See ya.
Thanks, Marina.